When I was growing up, we weren't allowed violent video games. So basically no shooters for us. So I was primarily brought up on RPGs, platformers, and like racing games. My parents did let us have Star Wars related stuff though, such as Battlefront 2, because in their heads it was disassociated with any sort of real world guns or violence and all that jazz. And so I will never forget the day where my brother convinced my mum that Halo was just basically Star Wars. So he managed to get her to buy us Halo Reach. I got home from a friend's house to see him playing this beautiful, fun space shooting game and instantly asked if I could hop on with him. And there and then, a new Halo fan was born. Quite fittingly, my first Halo game started at the beginning of the main series story, so I got to witness the progression of the narrative in chronological order. Halo CE's remaster came out later on that year and I got it for my birthday. For Christmas, I got a classic copy of Halo 2. In the new year, I managed to save up enough money to buy Halo ODST and Halo Wars for cheap at a game shop. My friend from school let me borrow his copy of Halo 3, and this all set me up for Halo 4's release in 2012. I was finally up to date. I can safely say that for that year and a half, I lived and breathed Halo. They were basically the only games I played: matchmaking, customs, Forge, campaign, firefight. The amount of time I spent on the OG Halo Waypoint app on the 360, watching videos about the lore of the various species of the Covenant, historical timelines of wars and all that stuff was crazy. I mean, what an amazing way of localizing all of the Halo lore into an easily accessible console app. It was great. I bought the comics, the books, and various other media. I was truly in love with the universe of these games. And all of that love started with Halo Reach. And so in this video, I'm going to look back on it and try to explain why it left such an impression on me, to show how incredible this game truly is. Bungie made a really bold choice when it came to their final game. I mean, they were contractually obligated to make one last Halo game before they left Microsoft to go and work on Destiny. So with that context, it kind of makes more sense why they try something a little different. That, alongside the fact that Halo 3 wrapped up the Reclaimer saga so beautifully, ending the Covenant, putting the Flood to rest, and placing Chief in stasis drifting amongst the stars. It would have been weird for them to make a sequel to that trilogy, especially one that would have to be contained to one singular game, so the decision to rewind the clock to before combat evolved was a pretty neat idea. This story takes place before humanity encounters Halo, before they discover the horrors of the Flood, before humanity's real understanding of the Covenant's drives or motivations. In the timeline, Halo Reach, Halo 1, 2, and 3 all happen in the same year, with the actions and events in all of these games being dominoes falling chronologically, affecting the wider Halo universe in massive ways. What happens in Reach is really the beginning of the end of the Human Covenant War, but despite this, the tone of the game is bleak, full of dread and loss, and it is beautiful. The plot of this game takes us on the journey of Noble Team, placing us in the shoes of its newest member, Noble 6. After investigating what is presumed to be insurrectionist activity, Noble Team soon learn of the Covenant's presence and the inevitable invasion of Reach begins. Noble Team is sent on various defensive and offensive missions during the course of the campaign to try and push back the invasion, staving off the complete takeover and decimation of Reach. There is a constant feeling of dread and hopelessness throughout this story. For every step forward, there are 2 steps back. The feeling of the inevitable loss getting stronger and stronger with each mission. There are no free wins here. For example, I'll never forget this moment after the mission Tip of the Spear. You spend the whole mission mounting a counterattack on the Covenant, moving through the landscape, taking out as much of the Covenant forces as you can, with the ultimate goal of making it to one of the Covenant spires, which acts as cloaking devices and teleporters. You, Noble 6, and George eventually succeed in destroying one of them, disabling the shield so that the UNSC Grafton can fly in and take it out with its Mac cannon. It sounds badass, right? The whole section is blood-pumping action as you jump into the Falcon and zoom away, the space frigate swooping in past you and blowing up the spire. And then, as if out of nowhere, this happens.
No, somebody tell me this ain't happening.
UNSC frigate Grafton, do you copy?
Grafton is dust. We need to get out of here now.
The frigate gets obliterated from the sky. As we look up, we see the now uncloaked Covenant supercarrier taking up the sky above us, bigger than anything we have seen thus far. This is a brilliant encapsulation of how Halo Reach makes you feel. It gives you engaging action as we root for humanity's desperate efforts to take control of the war. And then, when it seems like we've finally got a foothold, finally made some progress, finally succeeded at something, we get knocked right back down again and reminded that we're on a sinking ship. It is a constant dance with death. And then there is Noble Team, your teammates throughout the game. By nature of being the newcomer, the team seem closer to each other than you. Well, because they are. But for us as the audience, this can come across as them not really having much character at all. But as you spend time with each of them, their characters and specialities start to shine through bit by bit. You have George, Noble 5, the gentle giant. He is the heart of the group, caring and compassionate, whilst also being a heavy weapons specialist, hulking around with his heavy machine gun. Emil, Noble 4, the one with the attitude, overconfident and arrogant. Emil is known for his unique helmet and his love of his knife. Emil makes use of quips and sarcasm, being the badass of the group. But every now and again, he lets his guard slip, and we see that deep down he really does care for the team and for Reach. June, Noble 3. He's the quiet and stealthy member of the group. He doesn't say much, but always has your back, whether that's being the eyes in the sky or taking out that elite sneaking up behind you with his sniper rifle. Kat, Noble 2, the brains of the group. Kat is a technical expert and has a plan for any situation. She's confident, standing up to all of the other men in the team and not taking any of their crap. Carter, Noble 1, the charismatic leader of the group. Carter rallies Noble Team together, keeping them in check, whilst also caring deeply for them. He's a Spartan through and through, willing to lay it all on the line to complete the mission. Noble 6 comes into this well-oiled and established group as a lone wolf, described as hyper-lethal, a term only used for them and Spartan 117, the Master Chief. Carter comments on this, telling 6 that Noble is a team, none of that lone wolf stuff. These are all the surface level details about these characters. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say that these are the deepest and most interesting characters in the whole of fiction. Hell, they're not even the best characters in the Halo franchise itself. But as we go through the game, we do start to slowly unravel this team, what they stand for, what makes them tick, especially as we start to lose each of them one by one. And I, for one, think that Bungie created an awesome team of characters here. And speaking of their deaths, I know it's probably been said 1,000 times in 1,000 videos, but each death is extremely ironic, hammering home this overarching theme of dread and hopelessness. George sacrificed himself and died taking out the Long Night of Solace, a heroic action that would have turned the tide of the war. But in reality, it is instantly made meaningless as we watch a whole Covenant fleet appear from slipspace just after the detonation. Kat, the tactical planner, the brains of the group, died from a Jackal sniper shot to her head, only made possible by the EMP from the glassing deactivating her shields. In other words, she died from events that she just couldn't plan for. Carter, the leader of the group, sacrificing himself for the rest of the team to complete the mission, he flew his Pelican into a scarab, going down with the ship. Emil, the close quarters specialist who loved his knife, died in close quarters, being stabbed by an energy sword. Noble 6, the lone wolf, died alone. The newest member to join Noble Team on Reach was the last one left on Reach, making their stand on the planet that they failed to protect. And then there's Jun, the silent assassin who disappeared, vanished from the story altogether, the only one to survive the invasion. There is a grit and realism here in this game that makes all of these events feel like they actually could happen. Halo CE 2 and 3 were larger-than-life games with space zombies and universe-ending stakes. Don't misinterpret me here. That is not a bad thing. I love those games and those stories, but they did feel colossal in nature. Reach, however, it feels like in a couple of 100 years, this could be real. The art style feels gritty and worn down. The characters are nuanced and complex. The feeling of dread, the feeling of hopelessness gives every part of this game stakes that feel real. There is something to lose here, and at the end of the day, it is lost. The Covenant feel imposing, all-encompassing and alien to us. I think that it was an interesting choice not to have any of the Covenant speak English in this game. It makes them feel more alien, unknown, this mysterious faction that is impossible to understand. Look, I love the funny phrases from the grunts and elites in Halo 2 and 3.
You have some brains on your face.
It's so charming and it gives the games so much personality.
Greetings!
But I think given the tone of Reach, it was the right decision, and it makes the Covenant as a whole feel even more threatening, in my opinion. All of these aspects come together to create a story that is gripping, engaging and devastating, feeling so different to any other game in the franchise, and telling a really damn good story in the process. Halo is known for its music. One of the first videos I ever made on this channel was all about the music in Halo Combat Evolved and how it was an integral pillar of the game's fundamental design. And we can see this same design philosophy in Halo Reach, with Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore showing that they are some of the best composers in the video game industry. The soundtrack as a whole is much more reflective and melancholic. It lacks some of that mysterious and ancient feeling that's found in Combat Evolved, Halo 2 and 3, and this is reflected in the story. We aren't at Halo yet. We aren't at the Forerunners, the ancient and mysterious race. We're on this human colony, failing to stop an alien invasion. And as I said earlier, it's a lot more grounded and, well, human, and you can see that in the music. Halo Reach has such a specific tonal and musical identity, and a massive part of that identity comes in the form of Marty's glue tracks. Marty's musical glue is musical material that is used to stitch musical moments or gameplay moments together, making the soundtrack work seamlessly and transition with the shifting, adaptive nature of gameplay. When I think of Reach's music, I think of this sound. A wash of musical layers with this wailing voice over the top of it. These moments of musical glue come up all the time in gameplay, but they are dynamic, different layers coming in and out so as to keep the sound new and fresh. And even though they're supposed to be the in-between musical material, a sort of placeholder ready to move into the next musical section when the player advances to a certain point, I feel like they create such a beautiful and sad mood that fantastically represents the events of the story. The vocal line sounds like a lament for Reach itself, sort of foreshadowing the fall of the planet from the very beginning of the game. Even though Reach has a completely different feel tonally, Marty wanted the music to still feel like it was rooted and connected to the Halo music fans knew. Reach is a prequel to Halo Combat Evolved, and I wanted to make sure that there were elements in the score that would remind players that these events are related to Halo, but set in a story that is darker and more tragic. There are many moments where classic themes, motifs, and sound worlds from the original 3 games are sprinkled into Reach's tracks, reminding the player what this story is leading to. And my favourite callback is in the track Tip of the Spear. This whole track is very reminiscent of the classic Halo theme, the heavy strings and percussion driving the music along, with the higher strings playing a soaring melody over the top of it. However, the use of the horns and the Phrygian mode definitively place this on Reach. Then we get to this quieter section that leads into a vocal reprise of the classic Halo theme, a beautiful callback to that iconic opening, with the classic violin riff coming in before jumping straight back into the A section again. Honestly, when that Halo theme comes in, it gives me chills every single time. The ending of the piece even repurposes the classic cello bass line, expanding it for a full orchestration to finish the piece off. And as a final point about the music, there is a pretty big focus on bottom-heavy orchestral arrangements, with the bass line and percussion having a huge prominence. This feels like a way of grounding the music even more. This story is purely from a human perspective, and particularly from a human military perspective, and the music reflects that, having the heavy chugging bass lines and tribal-esque percussion. Of course, you also have the atonal and electronic music that helps place this story in a futuristic spacefaring universe, but there is an undeniable emphasis of orchestral arrangement. I feel like every bit of music in this game was thought out so thoroughly, fitting the themes, the story, and the world that is presented throughout the game. In my opinion, it is one of the best soundtracks of all time. A video game can have a compelling story, a wonderfully realised setting, interesting characters, and the best damn music in the world, but if the gameplay itself isn't good, then no one's going to play it. Thankfully, Reach excels in this category as well, being incredibly fun to play, with deep mechanics and a sandbox full of interesting and exciting things to use. Now, disclaimer, I am not a competitive Halo player. Like, I've dabbled in ranked play and such, but I wouldn't say I'm amazing. So things like bloom and balancing and all of that stuff aren't things that I personally am going to focus on. I apologise if anything I say is something only uttered by the heretics, but this is my own personal opinion, and if you have your own, then it is just as valid. Let's start with the base mechanics. As with all the Halo games, Reach is a smooth game to play. Bungie are titans of the FPS genre for a reason, and it's because the games they make are just downright fun to play. Moving is fun, shooting is fun, piloting vehicles is fun. There's nothing here that I would not. Apart from the bloom. I know I said I didn't really care about it, but damn, there's too much bloom on some of these weapons, and it is actually frustrating. I'm noticing it. I do notice it. It is really annoying. Focusing in on the campaign here, the Covenant are as fun to fight as they've always been. The different species all fill different roles. Grunts are cannon fodder, but in numbers they can easily overwhelm you, especially because they can use weapons such as the Needler and the Fuel Rod cannon. Jackals hide behind their shields, peppering you with fire from behind cover. Skirmishers snipe you from afar, darting in and out of the battlefield. Brutes are, well, brutish. They don't have shields like in Halo 3, but they can sponge a fair bit of damage and will still rage and run at you if their health gets too low. Hunters are as intimidating and as fun to fight as they've ever been. Drones serve the purpose of being really annoying swarms that pepper you with plasma from above. And elites are as graceful and tactical as ever. The way they interact with each other, the grunts running away if you kill an elite commanding them, or sometimes going suicidal, pulling out plasma grenades and running at you kamikaze style. All of these mechanics make fighting the Covenant fun and interesting. Each time you play, something will be different. Also, this is the first game that I really realised that the different coloured elites have different traits. Depending on the colour of the elite, they will have different shield strengths, different squad members at their command, different weapons. I know this concept is in all of the other games, but I feel like in Reach, their different traits are just so much more obvious, and in my opinion, it gives each elite rank such a different feel when fighting. You know when you're up against a squad of Spec Op elites, or an elite ultra. There's a reason why I replay this campaign once a year on Legendary, because it's just fun to approach each combat encounter, and a large part of that are the enemies you fight. But it's not just the enemies that make the game fun, it's the sandbox. Just like in every other Halo game, the sandbox in Reach gives so much life and character to its gameplay. Yeah, it's not perfect, especially if you're looking at it from a purely competitive standpoint. The DMR dominates basically every single situation, and anything that is automatic can be put in the bin. But that aside, there are so many good and fun weapons in this game. You have your classic power weapons that give you immense firepower. Rockets, shotgun, sniper and splazer. Then you have other things like the grenade launcher, which is one of the most fun and creative weapons in the game. A long-range explosive and EMP. You can do so much with that. The concussion rifle might not be as good as the brute shot, but it's still chaotic with its pushback. The plasma launcher can be devastating if used correctly, and the return of the energy sword and grav hammer make close quarters battles fun and heart-pounding. The amount of versatility that's on offer is crazy. I've played such a variety of different game modes and challenges in this game. Does anyone else remember Achievement Hunter's original Halo Horse videos? That series is a testament to how the sandbox can be put to use to create some incredibly creative game modes. The vehicles handled great. Reach introduces the Falcon, which remains the GOAT of all Halo vehicles, and the Revenant is a really fun intermediary stage between the Ghost and the Wraith. BTB Heavies was always a favourite mode of mine, as it allowed you to really get your hands on all of the aspects of the sandbox in 8v8 mayhem. Finally, let's talk about the armour abilities. Ooh, what a very touchy subject. Ever since Halo 3, Bungie tried to find that fourth pillar of gameplay to go alongside the golden triangle of guns, melee and grenades. Equipment was chosen for Halo 3, and we've recently seen it return in Infinite. But in Halo Reach, Bungie decided to implement the idea of giving the Spartans themselves special abilities. In the campaign, you get introduced to the various armor abilities as you play, giving the player some choice as to how they want to play. Do you want to be able to sprint, be able to use a jetpack, create holograms, all that jazz? The player can find various different points in each mission where one can swap in different armor abilities to mix up and change the gameplay mid-mission. Whereas in multiplayer, you can choose which one you want through a loadout system. I personally don't have an issue with armor abilities, though I prefer the idea of equipment as found in Halo 3 and Infinite. In Reach, there are a wide variety of different abilities that all have different pros and cons. Let's be real, the jetpack is cool. It allows instant verticality that could give the user the advantage, but if used in the wrong scenario, it makes you a sitting duck just ripe for a headshot. Sprint is so controversial in Halo, but the great thing about having it as an armor ability is that you can tailor any map or mode to work without it. Being able to sprint allows you to move faster, but it takes a moment to raise your weapon to fight, and you emit that iconic Spartan panting noise. The drop shield is underused in my opinion. I think it's super cool, and it also has the plus of healing and recharging your energy shields. Armorlock is such a meme at this point, but I have to be honest, there is something so intrinsically badass when you successfully destroy a ghost that is boosting towards you by timing your armorlock perfectly. But yeah, in any other situation, it just grinds firefights to a halt, and the idea of giving the player the ability to just temporarily become invincible at any point is ridiculous, and I understand why it's so hated. Active Camo. A really cool idea, giving this to the player as an ability that they can activate at will, just like the Arbiter in Halo 2. But so as to make it less effective and not really overpowered, when it's activated, it scrambles both yours and everyone else's radar, making people know that someone invisible is around, whilst also limiting your own use of the radar. So it's, pros and cons. Hologram, again, a pretty cool ability. It can be more useful than people might think, and I've seen some masterful uses of it as an ability, fooling the enemy team and giving the user the edge, but it's very easy to use it badly. And finally, Evade. The most uncommon Spartan ability, it's more of an elite ability. This ability is really fun. It allows you to hop and dive around the map, but you gotta be careful, you might yeet yourself to your death. So, a little recap here. There is so much stuff in this game, so many mechanics that can be added and removed to create whatever kind of experience that you want. It has fun weapons, all of which serve different purposes and mechanics. Some of them have overlap, yeah, but they all bring a different feel or mechanic to the game. Bungie made an extremely versatile and engaging sandbox, and I think you would be hard-pressed to find many other games nowadays that even come close to what Halo Reach offers. Now I need to put in a section here about the multiplayer maps, because maps are such a large component of whether a multiplayer game is good or not. Personally, I think Reach is a pretty decent selection of maps. A lot of maps used are ripped straight from the campaign, which has its pros and cons. What's cool about it is that you feel like you are on Reach for so much of this game, tying the multiplayer into the campaign in this weird way. There is this consistency between the modes, but the con is that some of the maps are just kind of forgettable because of that. They might work well for a campaign section where you blast through and take out Covenant squads, but I don't know, I feel like a fair amount of the launch maps were just a little bland. That being said, maps like Spire, Powerhouse and Countdown feel like classic Halo maps in their own right, all of which can be utilised for different game modes. But unfortunately, I feel like this is the weakest section of Reach's package. Don't get me wrong, they aren't all bad, and the map packs added some really cool ones. Anchor 9 is a favourite, and Battle Creek is really cool, but there aren't loads that stand out massively, which is why Forge was such a key addition to this game. Halo 3 added Forge to the franchise and revolutionised the potential for Halo custom games. Bungie gave the community the tools to create their own crazy, wacky and incredibly fun modes, showing a huge amount of trust in the players. So, for Halo Reach, their swan song, they went full out with Forge as a mode, giving it even more potential than Halo 3. Everything about Reach's Forge was better than 3's. The controls were more intuitive, there were more pieces to place, more systems to utilise to create your own experience, and then there was the gem that was Forge World. A large, empty landscape full of different areas ripe for forging entire maps. Looking back on it, Forge World is genuinely amazing. The scale was crazy and it gave the incredible Forge community so much to work with to create awesome things. Yes, most of the blocks were that iconic and pretty bland grey colour, so get used to that colour palette if you're going to jump into some Reach custom games, but that is something that you can look past. Forge has expanded and deepened massively since Reach, with each new game ramping it up. Halo 5 Forge was genuinely groundbreaking, and with Halo Infinite, 343 have created the most versatile version of the mode yet. Some of the creations I've seen from Forge in Infinite have actually blown my mind. It's truly one of Halo's greatest additions. But for its time, Halo Reach's Forge was revolutionary and let the community take ownership of the franchise. Halo custom games are so important and genuinely one of the pillars of the franchise, and Bungie knew that, and so they gave the community the right tools to create what they wanted to create. Customization of your Spartan is a feature that has kind of been in Halo since the very beginning. In Halo CE, you could choose what color your Spartan was. In Halo 2, you could do similar, but with more colors and secondary colors as well. You also had the option of being an elite if you wanted to. Halo 3 pushed the boat out though, giving the player a lot more options to design their Spartan look. But I think we can all agree that Halo Reach is where armor customization hit its peak. The sheer amount of customization that was possible in this game is ridiculous. Helmet, visor, left, right shoulders, chest piece, wrist, utility, knee guards, armor effects, and firefight voice. 10 different categories that were then full to the brim with different armor parts, all with distinct looks and personalities. In Halo Reach, you could create your own Spartan. And the method of unlocking all the different armor pieces was tied to literally every single thing you did in the game. Whether you played campaign, multiplayer, firefight, forge. If you were playing the game in any way, you earned credits, and those credits were used to purchase various armor pieces. Some pieces were locked until you reached a certain level, but in general this meant that you could decide exactly what you wanted to unlock and work towards it. So by the time you got to the point where you had your full kitted out Spartan, you had put in the time and effort to get there. There was a sense of achievement. Also, back in the day, if you ever ran into someone with the inclement weather armor effect, then you knew it was someone who had sunk time into the game. This system is 1,000,000 times better than a rec pack, than a loot box, than a season pass. In Halo 5, you had no way of working towards anything. It was all random, so if you had a rare helmet, that meant nothing. You just got lucky or you spent a lot of money on the game. Halo Infinite has some amazing armor customization. It has potential to be better than Halo Reach in my opinion, but it's tied to a season pass, which is better than a loot box, but nowhere near as great as Reach's system. And also there's that overpriced store that is an abomination. So if you see someone with really cool armor, the chances are they paid for it. Let's get back to Reach's system. Not only was it more player friendly, not requiring anyone to pay any more money to get more armor, but it also got the player invested in the game's systems, working towards certain armor pieces to create the Spartan they wanted, which keeps people around, keeps people playing the game. Also, another great feature of Reach was the implementation of the player's custom Spartan into the campaign. It just tied every part of the game together. Being able to see the labour of your multiplayer grind in the campaign cutscenes was just a really cool part of the game. Whoa, this is a long video. But this game is full of so much stuff to talk about. So I'm just going to rattle off my last few points so as to try not to bloat this video anymore. The UI, phenomenal. The main menu itself has the same feel as the campaign. The music is grand and somber. The scale of the menus gives space for these beautiful and tragic canvases. It's intuitive and easy to use. Why is this art form of good UI so lacking in modern day video games? It's such an important part of a game. It's the first point of connection any player has with a game. And when it's done well, it enhances all of the game systems. When it's done poorly, it's just irritating and frustrating. Being able to see the match lobby before the game where you could view other people's Spartans was a great way of creating community and giving people incentive to go for other armor pieces that they see on other people's Spartans. The match veto and voting system, it was great. It should be brought back. Theatre was so integral to so many parts of the online culture of Halo. Being able to rewatch your games where you popped off or where something funny happened, and then being able to send screenshots or send files to each other through this file share system. The file share system is what allowed Halo Forge to be as good as it is. Being able to share custom games and custom maps revolutionized the potential for Halo custom games. Also, another customization thing, there was elite customization. An Invasion was a game mode specifically utilizing the Spartan versus elite dynamic, and that was a really cool idea. Please bring back elites in Halo. I bet you there are things that I've missed out, but all in all, this game is full to the brim with so much great content. I don't understand how people can dislike this game. If you do, please, I'd be interested to see in the comments, what was it that put you off? Because when I look at this game, I see a whole experience that was tailored by Bungie for fans of the Halo franchise. It took all of the elements of what made Halo, Halo, and shoved them into a massive sandpit and told us to go and play with them. Like I said earlier, to me, it feels like every single part of this game was made with thought, care, and love. It really was Bungie's swan song, and they went out with a bang. And that is why I fell in love with Halo. This game introduced me to the best parts of one of the best sci-fi franchise that ever existed. It opened the door to a whole game series of smooth gameplay, badass stories, deep and expansive lore, and a heck of a lot of fun. For Bungie, it was the end. But for me, this was just the beginning. Thank you guys for watching. This was a huge project and I loved every single moment of it. This game means a lot to me. This franchise means a lot to me. And if you stuck around to this point, then thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment if you want help with the algorithm. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.